Hello and welcome to the video. My name is Reid and today I'm making some art. So today I'm going to be working on a sketchbook while I talk about some sketchbook related things. So I'm just going to draw in my sketchbook. I'm doing the skull first and I'm going to do some more on the page over. But anyway, I'm going to talk about a topic that is sort of important to talk about, or at least I think it is. And it's how do you actually use a sketchbook? Because it is quite controversial, especially in the art community. Some people think it should just be for gestures and just studies and nothing sort of fun or artsy. It has to be sort of more like sort of apples and glass and boobs, sort of more figure studies, gesture studies. Not so much more experimenting, more just sort of doing what you see in front of you, still lives, that kind of thing. So I'm going to be using like 3 examples of artists that I follow personally in this sort of sketchbook rant thing. It's not really a rant, it's sort of just a chat. It's a chat. I'm going to say chat because it sounds less aggressive than a rant. Although I might get a tad ranty, to be honest, because, yeah. Also, first things first, you may have noticed my setup is so much better. I'm doing my best to sort of increase the quality of my videos, and I'm just trying really hard to make them better and better. That's why you'll be seeing the new white background. I didn't get a new table. It's a fake mat sort of thing. It's just a mat that I put on, but it brightens up my videos a lot, and I'm trying to use a different sort of editing software because the software I used for my last sketchbook tour completely degraded everything. So I might take that down and redo it. We'll have to see. Anyway, sketchbook stuff. Yeah, so I get this quite a bit because I don't use my sketchbook for studies that much. I mean, you can see in this video, I've done a figure study and I've done fabric studies and I'm doing a study of a skull. But it's less about doing a study and more about just kind of making stuff that I like. Yeah, it's sort of weird. My 3 artists that I've chosen to talk about as my examples are Casey Golden, Drawing with Waffles or Rin, and Audra or Claire. I chose these artists because I follow them quite a lot, and there's sort of like I watch their sketchbook tours and I follow them quite a lot, especially Audra or Claire. She's like one of my biggest inspirations ever. But yeah, so first up is Casey Golden. Well, let's talk about what the perceived version is. So sketchbooks need to be used different ways for different people. For example, if you are trying to do realism stuff, you need to be doing faces, you need to be doing still lifes. You need to be doing that kind of thing. But that's not to say that you can't do more fun stuff just to kind of break away from doing realism. Because sometimes realism can be a bit of a drag, or not really a drag, but sort of, if it's not going well, it can often sort of hurt your ego a bit, I guess, in a way. I mean, it's like with any sort of drawing, there should be something like with any sort of technical drawing, there should be like another outlet which is more simplified and something that's easy to do. For example, I tend to draw a lot of plants when I get frustrated, but anyway. If you want to get good at realism, you have to do that kind of stuff, but what if you want to be an illustrator? Well, yeah, you have to do that kind of stuff, but you also have to do character design, you have to do sort of caricatures, you have to play around with limbs and lengths and styles and all sorts. Whereas a lot of people think, I haven't done this much personally, but I've seen it a lot in other YouTubers' things, that people will be like, that's wrong, that's not how you use a sketchbook, because I love watching sketchbook tours. And then the comments will be like, no, you can't do that, this is too pretty, it has to be ugly sketches, it has to be awful, they have to like reflect an artist's emotion, they have to be, you know, sort of messy, and they're not supposed to be pretty, and all that kind of thing. Whereas, so first example, Casey Golden. Casey Golden uses her art more for her ideas, for writing lists. Sorry, I've got a bit of a lisp. Anyway, for writing lists and things. And for just like jotting down simple ideas. I mean, her ideas aren't always refined. Some of them are more refined than others, but they're just done in pencil. I mean, I love her style. I think it's really adorable. And her sketchbooks are just for her ideas. And that's what they need to be. They don't have to be pretty. And that sort of thing she likes to do. She likes to do the occasional study, but she mostly just does practicing her style and practicing refining herself and drawing herself and all these other things. And that's what works for her. And I think that's a really important thing, is that sketchbooks are more of a very personal thing. But people kind of get mad when people talk about sharing sketchbooks. I like seeing other people's sketchbooks. I like sharing my own sketchbook. If someone comes up to me and asks, hey, can I look at your sketchbook? I'm like, yeah, sure, just be careful with it, because, you know, it's my sketchbook. But like, I quite enjoy, because it's just, especially when I go to art school, we feed off each other's creativity a lot, like a lot more than you'd think. We're always getting inspired by each other and exchanging ideas and talking about different techniques and mediums and all sorts. And I think that's the kind of thing with sketchbooks as well. Looking through other people's sketchbooks gives you ideas. Like, I'm always on Pinterest looking through other people's sketchbooks and the things they upload, and I love it. I'm always watching sketchbook tours. And you don't have to present them to the world if you don't want to. You don't have to make them pretty for the world. Just make them for you. For me, I like having an aesthetically pleasing sketchbook because that's what makes me happy. Not all of the sketches are fine, not all of them are good. But as long as I'm happy with like one per page, I'm sweet. There are some pages and a lot of my sketchbooks that I just absolutely fucking hate. But I'm trying not to rip them out because that's the thing I do a lot. But yeah, anyway. But Casey Golden, again, she just uses her sketchbooks as a way to get her illustration ideas down and just a way to sort of practice. And that works really well for her. But if we move on to drawing with waffles, that does not work for her. It does not work for Rin quite so much at all. I mean, Rin does do a lot of sort of study stuff and practicing her style, but she also does a lot of trying out new things. Like, she'll often do scrawler boxes in her sketchbooks where she'll be trying out new mediums, new techniques, all sorts of things. And it's like, you know, it's the kind of thing where she really likes to sort of have a sketchbook where she just draws in it whatever she feels like. Doesn't matter if it's pretty in the end, because she has a lot of loose stuff, a lot of more refined stuff, a lot of like finished stuff. Like, Rin has a lot of like completed Copic marker illustrations in her sketchbook, which I think is pretty awesome, and that's the kind of thing I like to do, except I'm not really a fan of Copics. One, because they're expensive, and two, I just haven't really gotten into markers. But yeah. And Rin's sketchbooks are often always very, very colourful. She uses a lot of colour, a lot of fun sort of background stuff, adds in a lot of the detail, as Casey sort of leaves blank space, which again is fine. I'm not judging any of the ways they use their sketchbooks, I'm simply just pointing them out. So it's, you know, it's just, I don't judge anyone based on what they do with their sketchbook, as long as they're not doing anything illegal in it, like snorting cocaine off the pages. Do whatever the fuck you want. Anyway, so yeah, Casey Golden, she uses a lot of black and white, or just grayscale, mainly because it's just pencils, and she doesn't really add many backgrounds, which Drawing with Waffles will often go on with her highlighters or whatever afterwards, and she'll add in backgrounds, make everything cute and pretty, and just sort of accentuate things. And I love that idea. I try to do that myself as well. Whereas, you know, it's not something Casey would do because she doesn't feel like she needs to. But Rin quite likes making her sketchbooks a little more aesthetically pleasing. And that's just personal sort of wants. There's nothing wrong with having an ugly, in quotation marks, sketchbook. In fact, it's quite good to have a really loose sketchbook. In fact, a lot of artists I talk to have multiple sketchbooks. One for doing like really loose stuff, one for doing more intense stuff, and one for doing, you know, just other random things like studies, life studies, still lifes, all that kind of jazz. It's not all sort of one book. And then there's Audra Claire, who's personally one of my favourite artists ever. She does, her sketchbooks sort of turn into mini art books. Like, they're not really sketchbooks anymore, it feels like. They kind of represent whatever her art is turning into at the time. She sometimes will plan ideas in there, but not very often. It's more sort of finished pieces and more refined sketches, and it's all very beautiful. And it's less sketchy and more refined, and it really is just like an art book. Like, she's designing an art book in a sketchbook. And that's sort of the thing I like. I like sort of mixing it up. I like doing sort of art book, but also like doing more sketchy stuff. Like, I will often plan ideas in the sketchbook. In fact, the one I'm working on right now has the initial idea for a piece I'm working on right now. I don't normally refine it in my sketchbook. Normally I will get the general idea down on my sketchbook, or draw something and then get the idea from that, because I love sort of drawing stuff and then getting inspiration from it, because there are pieces in here, if you look at my Instagram, that have been inspired me to make bigger pieces based on it, and that's the kind of thing I like to do. But yeah, so it's like, yeah, I also like to do occasional life studies, although they're not my favourite. I get kind of bored of drawing apples. I love drawing skulls. I want to buy some actual skulls of probably birds and have them so that I can draw from life. But I also look at Sketchfab, which is a 3D model site. Well, it's actually an app, and it allows you to have a 3D model on your phone. You can like turn around like using your fingers. You can kind of adjust the angle of how you want to view it, and that's sort of like drawing from life. Not quite the same. I do a lot of live drawing at my art school because not as much anymore. I used to do a lot more, but yeah, it's sort of come to the point where it's not that I don't need it, I just don't enjoy it the same way I did, because it's a lot of the shorter poses. And I'm not really a fan of gestures. Yeah, they're great ideas, but they don't always work for me. And that's why I normally avoid doing them. If I do them, I'm such a mature 18-year-old, I will do them in scrap paper, and if I like them, I'll stick them in. Because I also love to collage in my sketchbook, and I think that's something that's really, really underrated in the sketchbooking world. Whatever that means. But it's sort of like, I love using different papers, and that really helps me. A lot of people will be like, no, you should always use... I've had people say, why do you use white paper? Why don't you just use brown paper? You clearly like using brown paper. I like using brown paper, but I don't like drawing a pencil on it, because I find the pencil just doesn't show up properly. It's just not as nice. It just doesn't work for me. Whereas some people, brown paper works absolutely brilliant, and that's great for them. But it wouldn't work for me just because of the way I art. I like having the different textures. I like having different colours. And I originally was making my own sketchbooks where I had a different colour page every page. Whereas now I just know how to use them, so I just glue them in. And that's the way I use my sketchbook that is quite different to a lot of other people, because making a sketchbook with different papers is not my own original idea. Well, it was at the time, but it's not like a new concept. But the way I use my sketchbook is fairly unique as to what I've seen. A lot of people, I mean, on Pinterest you'll see lots of sketchbooks that are vaguely similar, but in my art school I'm kind of the only one who uses it this way. And in general, even on Instagram and things, I'm not really tooting my horn saying I'm better than everyone. It's just saying I like to do it this way, others don't, and that's totally okay. It's just the way the world works, really. It's not a bad thing that I like to do it this way. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone. It's just like, I use it this way, you use it that way. And I feel like it's a bit, there's quite a lot of gatekeeping in the art community. And sketchbooks are only one thing that get gatekeeped, but it's one thing I've been noticing a lot, and because I'm doing a sketchbook video, I thought it'd be good to have a sketchbook theme. But gatekeeping the art community is quite intense. But it's just sort of, I mean, there's so many arguments in comments of videos. I mean, I quite like having debates with people, several debates where it's like, oh, sorry, if you can hear my chair squeaking, it's driving me insane, but my leg was falling asleep, so I had to move slightly. But yeah, it's sort of, I don't know, pointless, I guess. It is pointless, because everyone has their own opinions, and again, I'm going to say this for like the 50th time, there's no right way and there's no wrong way to use a sketchbook. There's only the way that works for you. Now, there are ways that are probably not, what's the word, like, they're not really going to help you if you use a sketchbook this way. And that's if you treat it as if it's too precious and that you can only use it for doing the best art in. Because that's how I used to treat my sketchbooks, and I found that I would never draw on them, and I rip out all the pages because it had to be perfect every time. And that's, personally, I don't think that's a good way to use a sketchbook. If you're making like an art collage book, then I guess that's sort of the way, but I feel like it'd be better to make the art pieces first and then put them in the book. So yeah, I definitely think that, sketchbooks shouldn't be a place where every page has to be exactly perfect. It should be sort of a thing that you're free to sort of do whatever you want. And sketchbooks don't always have to be hidden. Like, people will say, oh, you can never ask this artist to look in their sketchbook, it's so rude. It's like, well, no. If you ask with respect, hey, can I look at your sketchbook? And they say no, and you go, okay, that's fine. If they go yes, and you look at it, it's fine too. But if one of those people who grab the sketchbook as they're trying to ask, just please don't do that. But that's sort of the only thing. Sketchbooks Also, they don't have to be vent art. A lot of people say, oh, it's the artist's deepest feeling, it's like their little journal. I said, well, I guess it depends on the art you do. My art is sort of my escapism. I don't talk about or art any of my problems much. I'll do it like once in a blue moon. And that's why I use this sketchbook and my art in general. I use it as an escapism sort of thing. Not really as like as intense as that sounds, but sort of like I can create my own fantasy world every time I make a new piece. Like a pink rat, would you ever see that in real life unless you dyed it and like mutated it so I had like 6 eyes? It's just, stuff I like doing. Whereas some artists, like the one who did what they saw in during their schizophrenic breaks, they do things that are directly influenced by their life. And, again, different art styles will have different ways of using their sketchbooks. And it gets really frustrating when people are like, no, you have to use a sketchbook this way. I find art amino is quite bad for this. I mean, art amino is sort of a mixed bag for anything. I find there's quite a lot of gatekeeping done on art amino, like in general, when there really shouldn't be, or just artists on there trying to make art that we enjoy. But yeah, it's the sort of thing where it's like, what's the point of trying to gatekeep someone? Because they don't use the sketchbook the same way you do, or you think it's correct. It's just people are sometimes a bit controlling of other people, and it's really frustrating as well when you're just trying to make art that makes you happy, and people say, no, you can't do that. It's not realism, or that's not a life study, or it's not life drawing, or it's not A, B, or C, or X, Y, Z. And it's just, it's also that kind of thing where sketchbooks, I think people, artists are generally very sensitive people, and if your sketchbook, it's kind of like, sorry, I'm trying to word things as I'm trying to word things. Oh, wow, that was okay. I'm trying to think of the things and say them at the same time. It's sort of like if you're on an art app, DeviantArt, amino, whatever, and you see an artist who's 14 and they're like maybe better than you. It's that kind of thing where you're like, well, now I feel shitty. And I think that's sort of the thing people feel like with sketchbooks. Like if their art isn't, like if their sketchbook isn't as pretty as yours, or as clean as yours, or as aesthetically pleasing as yours, they get kind of mad. And that's kind of, I can relate to that a lot, because I'm a very judgmental, not of other people, but I'm quite judgmental of myself. And I think a lot of artists are quite guilty of that, to be honest. It's sort of just a mental health thing, and also just sort of a self-worth thing as well, I believe. Because a lot of artists I know are very introverted and don't have a lot of self-worth. Well, not self-worth, but self-image issues, that kind of stuff. Again, it's very sort of she said, he said kind of stuff. Like, there's no rule of thumb for everyone. There's just a general idea. And I think, I keep saying I think, but it just gets really annoying, and it's no fun when people are saying you can't make art this way. And I just want to talk about this because, like, I really feel like it needs to be talked about more. And I've seen a few videos on it, people kind of brush over it and they go, yeah, they said this, but I don't need to listen to it, which is absolutely fair. But it's also like, why are they saying this, and what can I do to change their mind? And it's just, again, Casey Golden, her sketchbook videos are very popular because she's a very popular artist. She blew up very quickly, and she had a massive following very quickly, which is great for her. It's so awesome, but she also gets a lot of backlash for that because she blew up so quickly. People are very judgmental of how she does everything. Drawing with Waffles, her videos, people are actually quite nice. She's got a fairly nice community. Again, they're never going to be perfect. And Audra or Claire, her community is sort of, I don't know, it's kind of hard. Because Casey Golden is quite interactive with her followers, because she's a lot fewer than Drawing with Waffles, or... Does she have fewer than... Oh, she definitely has fewer than Audra or Claire, I believe. It's sort of weird. Audra or Claire is kind of this... she's always busy. She's always on big, time-consuming oil pieces. She doesn't interact as much with her fans as, say, Casey Golden or Drawing with Waffles does. It's just not really her thing, and that's absolutely fine. I understand, because I take forever to paint shit too. Not saying I'm the same as Audra or Claire, I'm just saying, like, I understand it's hard to interact with people if you're busy painting all the time and trying to get new stuff out, but yeah. It's that kind of thing where it's like Rin has quite a positive community for the most part. Audrey or Claire has also quite a positive community, but it's not always perfect. So I'm really sorry for my shadow here. I'm really trying to sort out my lighting, but it was like quite dark at this point. So I need to get another light to put in front of me so it shines down. But yeah, I'm trying, okay? The video quality has increased a lot at least, which is great. Now, I'm kind of just sort of rambling now, but it's just, yeah, basically gonna kind of cap up and just say, try not to gatekeep people. I know it's sort of a human thing to want to be better than others. It's kind of in our nature to want that, but it doesn't mean you have to be an asshole about it. Like, you know, it's just that kind of thing. Like, you might have an opinion, but, you know, Hitler also had opinions, and look how that turned out. Opinions aren't always fact, and facts aren't always opinions. Facts are just facts, and opinions are opinions, and it's sort of, yes, there is multiple ways to use a sketchbook, and no, there is no wrong way to use a sketchbook unless, of course, you're using illegal. There are less constructive ways of using a sketchbook, and that's being really self-destructive with it, and being really hard on yourself. Every page is not perfect. That's not a constructive way of using it, but it's not technically a wrong way of using it. And I mean, if you're just using script for scribbles, that also might not always be the most constructive, because you're not getting any refinement practice in. So sketchbooks really just need to be catered to whoever the person is who's using the sketchbook. Especially if you've got, I mean, yeah, I've never had people come across that have very similar styles complaining about other people's sketchbooks. It's more people who are just viewers, a lot of younger kids mostly, like the 12 to 14-year-old range, a few older ones. It's more sort of people who are, I think it's sort of a base level of jealousy, where they just think, no, because I only do studies for mine and I don't think it looks very aesthetically pleasing, I think everyone else's should be the same. Instead of going, hey, I like the way that looks, maybe I should try something similar. I think it also has to do with the whole realism equals good mentality, and I'll talk about that in another video because that really pisses me off. We're kind of brought up with this whole realism is a better form of art than almost everything else. Whether you believe that or not, it's sort of ingrained in us since we were little. I don't know why. It's just sort of a thing that I've noticed a lot of people agree with, and I notice it personally myself. I notice it a lot. But yeah. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video of me speed painting and rambling. So this rat is just, I'm so really sorry, it got so dark. I really need to get another camera. But yeah, I'm just using gouache to do this rat in, and I think he's really cute. Also, you might have noticed I started off with a gold moon, but I found that the brown paper matched too much, and then the silver just didn't look right, so I went with white, and I really like the way it turned out. But yeah, if you guys have any opinions about how people should use their sketchbooks, or if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. I'd love to like debate this with you guys and not argue. I mean, like, seriously, like, if you believe people should use a sketchbook a certain way because it will be the most constructive for them, like, tell me down in the comments and I will respond to you, because I'm lonely and I don't have a very big following. So, you know, if you text me or message me or whatever, I'm probably gonna see it like straight away, unless I'm asleep. But anyway, yeah, if you disagree or agree or whatever, just let me know down in the comments. Like this video, head to my Instagram if you want to see the finished image, and I'll let you guys watch it till the end of the video. See ya. And that's pretty much the end of the video, so I'll see you later. Don't forget to take your paintbrushes out of your water, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Read out.